On this episode of the Tough Juice podcast, I had a special guest, so special that special is in his title, LaTroy Hawkins, special assistant to the Minnesota Twins organization. We went down the path and talked about a lot of things, about the importance of longevity in this space, on what you put into your temple. The man went vegan in the height of his career, and I'm not even going to tell you. You're just going to have to listen to the podcast. So be sure to subscribe to the Tough Juice podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, my YouTube page, or wherever you get your pods. This is a good one. So, LaTroy, let's just get right into it. Huge fan of yours, by the way. And before we begin, I recognize your shirt, Vote Initiative. And I'm part of the More Than a Vote campaign initiative as well. Been in that space for quite some time. Any thoughts on your Black Lives Matter protests and all the things that's happening around the world right now in this climate with civil rights movements and everything happening? What's your main initiative? What's your main call to action?
My main initiative, I got this shirt at the Minnesota ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. Just voting, getting out and changing laws and legislation. And, the big thing for me is prison reform. My brother went to prison in 1995, and he just got home February the 5th. The excessive sentencing and mass incarceration of black men. That's why I'm all in on the voting, and not just voting for presidential. We need to get people to understand that you need to start voting, mayors, your local prosecutors, and things like that. It starts on the city level, and then you work your way up.
Man, that's so powerful. You talking about, prison reform, mass incarceration, all those things. I also serve on the board of the Vera Institute, and I'm proud to be, on the board of governance in that space where we address all those things and we try to get bills passed to, move the needle in that space. And I'm so glad that you talked about not just voting on the presidential election, on the presidential level. I think that it's so important that people are engaged on the county and the state level as well, because those elected officials that fill those seats, if they're not doing the things that they're supposed to do for us, what should we be doing right now outside of just, protesting and, trying to get the right people in those seats? What are some of the other initiatives we should be doing?
I just encourage people to do your homework, man, because, like you said, on the local level, those things affect you directly in your city. Who your police chief is. We have to educate ourselves on what each elected official does, and do your background on them, and make sure you get out and vote. I don't care what happens when you hear right now, you talk about the postal service. They say Trump doing this, or you're mailing back. No, forget that. We will not be denied at the polls. Vote. That's all you got to get out and vote. And if you need help to vote, you can email me and I'll do my best to make sure that you can get to the polls to vote, because we have your voice. And I know a lot of people feel like their voice is not heard, but collectively our voices are heard. Collectively they're heard.
Yeah, that's huge. And we just wanted to harp on that just a little bit more, because we want to make sure that everybody get out there and have that same enthusiasm as we did, in 2008. And clearly, in the past when Obama was, up and running for office. But let's start at the beginning of your career and in your life. I know you're a Texas guy, but you grew up in Gary, Indiana. What was your childhood like living in the suburbs of Chicago? And what was your family like? And what aspirations did you have?
Karan, it definitely wasn't the suburbs. I can tell you that. I lived like maybe 28 miles from downtown Chicago, but it seemed like a world away. Gary's a steel mill city. We had like 4 steel mills when I was growing up. There's only one now, is U.S. Steel, that's still up and running. I was raised by my mom, her mom, my grandfather, and my grandfather's, new wife, they were married a lot longer than I was born. So she's my grandmother also. And just a blue collar family working. I mean, we wasn't rich. I had 2 brothers. One that went to prison. I have one that works in Gary. But regular life. I mean, I had to navigate my way through, going left or going right. I had a lot of my friends who didn't make it to high school graduation because of, drugs or, other bad situations that got them in a position where they were, killed. So, I had to navigate my way just like I'm sure you did growing up. And, and I was fortunate that I played a couple different sports, and I had some real legitimate Black men in my life that, guided me and kept me going on the straight and narrow. And that starts with my grandfather and, a couple coaches from high school. So it was definitely a village kept me on the right path.
Now, I'm so glad you brought that up, the importance of mentorship, because, me growing up, I didn't have that mentorship from a male standpoint. My mother was great. My grandmother was great. But I fell victim to like my circumstances and my surroundings, and I had to do 18 months in corrections. And it was a process of me getting to the point of identifying the problems that I had and had to address them head on for me to pivot and be the best version of myself. So can you just talk about the importance of having mentors, and also what other sports do you actually play?
I played basketball and I ran track in high school and played baseball. You're right. And, when it comes, like things that we do, the way we were raised, where we were raised, all those things, like they are a recipe to almost the final product of who you're going to be inside. And, when you're raised in a dysfunctional type environment, you take a lot of that dysfunction with you into your adulthood. And, it takes a lot of work internally once you get to a certain age. But I think what it did for me having good mentors is that I always knew that there was more out there for LaTroy Hawkins than, my surroundings. And I always wanted to get away from my surroundings. My mom can tell you, she just passed away. I just buried my mom August the 1st. But she always said, you always said when you was a little boy, you're going to move away. And you wasn't coming back. I said, well, I moved away, but I'm coming back. But, just having those male figures. My high school basketball coach, he played in the NFL. So I definitely had a strong mentor, and it's Coach Moreau, and he was 6'6", like 280 pounds. He was a tight end in the NFL, and he didn't. My love language wasn't, well, LaTroy, you can do it this way. No, Coach Moreau, I got paddles in high school up until my senior year, my last basketball of my senior year. So we were getting swats. So him cursing at me, and he knew what he needed to do to get me going. And I had another coach who was our head coach who took the other approach. And, just those mentors constantly staying on me, because I tell you what, Karan, I definitely wanted to go left. I sure did. All my buddies were going left. And, I was definitely getting pulled in both directions. And I'm glad that I ended up listening to the older voice that was in my ear. And that was from a couple of my coaches.
Isn't that like the most easiest thing in the world, though, to like pivot in the wrong direction, and that going down that straight and narrow path and doing the right thing is always the hardships, but the fruits of the labor at the end of the day is so rewarding, as you are the special assistant for the Minnesota Twins, doing a remarkable job in that space. And I know you have a soft spot for the Twins, who you work for today. But before you made it to the big leagues, you played 4 years in the minors. And I know that was kind of a college experience, but bridging the gap, so to speak. Would you agree on that?
Yes, it's definitely very similar to a college experience without the classroom. You definitely get a chance to hone your craft. I mean, we had to work hard to get better each and every day. And we're living in small towns, Elizabethton, Tennessee. I played in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and, in Minnesota, and then 11 other cities after that. But, it's definitely a college experience, a lot of fun. You got a lot of long bus rides into small towns and hostile environments. But I think that make you appreciate once you get to the top of your sport. And once you get there, the work is not done, as you know. Now you got to continue to get better, because I always said they're drafting your replacement every year. Every year your replacements get drafted.
That's deep. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because you said something that's super intriguing, and I want people to understand this, like how important it is to remain consistent, but sometimes even better than consistent, because your replacement is continuing to be drafted, or your position is continuing to be recycled, and your competition is like literally on the heels of you if you're not continuing to excel in that space.
So I never really understood that when I played. Now being on the side of front office and being in the space where I get to go out and scout amateurs, and I spend a lot of time with our national scouts who are around the country, getting prepared for the Major League Baseball draft that we have the 1st of June every year. And literally, they are on the road 300 days out of the year doing reports. So that's a true statement. Like being in the big leagues, that turnover is consistent. So you have to be consistent in your elite performance to not have to worry. When you're consistent and you're elite at what you do, you really don't have to worry about your spot being taken. Something's going to have to happen for that person, either contractual or, you start to lose some of your, you start to get a little old. But other than that, if you're consistent and elite, as you know, you're going to be around. You're going to be around for a long time.
In the podcast Nice White Parents, reporter Hannah Jaffe-Walt, you may know her from This American Life, started looking into a school in her neighborhood after her kids became school age in New York City. Hannah examines this public middle school traditionally filled with Black and brown students. After a number of white families arrived, she investigated the school's history and finally realized what kept getting in the way of making the school better: white parents. Nice White Parents is made by Serial Productions, a New York Times company, the same people who made Serial in S-Town. Launch CTA is now through 8/19. It's available everywhere, wherever you get your pods. Binge CTA 8/20 and beyond. All episodes are available wherever you get your podcasts. I think that when you see yourself getting a little long in the tooth, and you probably see that slippage happen from an athletic standpoint, not being able to get, close to a ball. I know in our sport, in basketball, if that dunk turns into a layup, somebody's coming to replace you rather quickly.
Yeah. See, the good thing, when I retired in 15, I could still throw hard. I was still throwing 94 to 96 miles an hour, but I couldn't recover. And that's when I knew it was time for me to give them the jersey back and say, thanks for the ride. It's been incredible. I appreciate everything baseball has given me, everything baseball done for me. I'm bowing out gracefully now.
That's spot on right there. What I got to ask you this, and I know we got to the back end quick, but what was your feeling like when you finally got the call to join the Twins?
I was in spring training, and it was in 1905, and we were the strike year. So we were locked out. And when we made an agreement, Major League Baseball gave us like maybe 2.5 weeks for spring training, and we ran right back into the season. So I ended up making a team out of spring training. I remember Tom Kelly, our manager at the time, calling me in the office, and I thought he was calling me in the office to tell me I was getting sent back down to AAA. And he told me I made the team, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm like, okay, it just got real. And I didn't want to show my excitement to him. I wanted to show TK that, you know what, I got ice water in my veins and I'm ready for this. But I couldn't wait to get out to go call my mother and my grandfather. I couldn't wait to tell them that I made the big league squad. And that was, I wasn't, and thinking back, I wasn't ready to be in the big leagues at all. I was not ready. But I was in an organization that was doing some rebuilding, and we were going young, and I was one of the recipients of that.
Oh, that's crazy. Hey, bro, I about literally lost everything in me when I found out that I was getting the call and that I knew that I was going to be a lottery pick. And the way that they go about it with us is that we go to a gang of workouts during the draft process, and all these different teams had guaranteed me if I'm here at this spot, they're taking me. So I had a guarantee at 6, 7, 11. So I was just, once I got those guarantees, especially from the legendary Pat Riley, I literally called my mom, my grandma. I said, make sure everybody in the family in the house. And they put me on the speakerphone. I was like, we about to make it. We about to do this. We about to like just going crazy with it. So I always love to hear those stories. You know that you've made the ultimate dream come true as a competitor, as an athlete in whatever space, to just share that energy in that moment with your loved ones. I know it had to be extremely rewarding.
Well, Karan, it's funny. That call I got was when I was in high school.
Yeah.
When I was out of Twins. I was in high school. I was in my government econ class taking a final. Like Miss Boone made her way towards my desk, and she set the little paper right on the edge of my desk while I'm doing my final. And it says, you've been selected in the 7th round by the Minnesota Twins. They'll be in touch. And I didn't get excited because you know why?
Why not?
Past that damn final.
You had work to do.
I got work to do. And I got home and I told my grandfather, and he was like, okay, what's next? So we were so oblivious to the whole process. I didn't know. I mean, I played baseball, basketball, ran track, but baseball was I thought baseball was the least sport that I was, talented in. So I was a little bit more apprehensive because of, I didn't think baseball was my best sport.
That's amazing, man. And not even thinking that baseball was your best sport. And I gotta ask this question as well. Like, in your career with the Twins, you had some tough seasons as a starter, but eventually the team switched you from a starter to a relief pitcher. How did that happen? And do you think that actually saved your career, or how did that change your career, or what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I was, young guy, you really don't understand the difference between the minor leagues and the big leagues. You can say you do, but you really have no clue. Like it's not even close. I dominated in the minor leagues. Well, the league's a little different, and I just couldn't get over the hump facing the team, 3 times, facing a batting order 3 times in a row. And he told me that, I remember him calling me in his office and told me, you know what, we're going to move you to the bullpen. And with your athleticism, with your arm, I think you're going to be pretty good out there. And I'm like, the only question I had for him at that time was, do I have to go to the minor leagues to learn how to pitch out of the bullpen? And he looked me in my eyes and said, that's up to you. And I was like, well, if I get to stay here, I'm ready for the challenge. And it definitely changed my career. I didn't have to worry about facing, a team's lineup 3 times, going through the lineup 3 times. I got to face a guy 1 time, maybe twice, and I always felt like, either I get you or you're going to get me. I ended up throwing harder, ended up having better stuff. And the one thing that being a starter helped me when I went to the bullpen, I had so many guys on base as a starter that when I got to the bullpen, having guys on base didn't faze me at all. So I was very comfortable in those uncomfortable situations because of my lack of success as a starter.
That's interesting. Who were some of the veteran guys that like helped you during that process?
I had Paul Molitor, who's a Hall of Famer, one of my teammates, Kirby Puckett, Bob Tewksbury, Kevin Tapani, Bobby Wells, Mike Jackson. A few guys that I can remember because, that was a very long time ago at the beginning of my career. And I think about when people ask me, what was the coolest thing? I'm like, golly, from the first 10 years or the last 10 years.
That's great. Can you talk about Torrey Hunter and that small group of friends that you had in your Twins days, and how that bond formed, and how important it is to, stay connected with guys like that?
Yeah, my group that I'm really good friends with and still very close with it. You know, we all came through the Twins organization, not pretty much together, but at different times. And we were, you know, Eddie Guardado was one of my good friends. He was a year ahead of me. You know, I was 2 years ahead of Torrey and 3 years ahead of Jock Jones. And, you know, Matt Lawton and I were, you know, at the same level each year with the Twins. So, you know, we all had a chance to play together. And throughout our minor league career, you know, we always told each other, you know what, if we're going to make it, we're going to have to link up with like-minded people. Not linking up with guys who just wanted to be here and just happy sign a professional contract. You know, I made sure my friends had the same goals, and that was to make it to the big leagues. And when, you know, I linked up with some guys who had the same goals as I had, and we were able to push each other, you know, whether it was another pitcher or, you know, most of my friends were position players, but we were able to push each other. And that bond we formed in the Twins organization, you know, once you get to a certain part of your career and, you know, guys start going all over the place, we still had that same bond. All our wives are good friends. You know, it was just, you know, just a friendship that we made sure we cultivated and pushed each other and tell each other, you know, you suck, get out of your own head. You're better than that. Let's go. Pay attention. You know, just little things that we can say to each other that we, you know, that other people couldn't say to us. And we held each other accountable for our actions on and off the field. And, you know, Torrey's a little younger than I am, about 2 years, but, you know, he's a very good friend. And Torrey's a man. Torrey's a man. You know, a lot of times when you read about somebody, you know, well, they just like that in the public eye. Well, you know, I think me and my friends, we're the same way no matter what. You see what you see is what you get. We're not one way when we're here and another way when we're over here. You see LaTroy Hawkins is what you get. When you see Torrey is what you get. When you see Jock Jones and Matt Lawton and Eddie Guardado, you know, this is who we are.
And LaTroy, that's powerful, man. And I love the fact that you said you have to surround yourself around like-minded individuals in order to, you know, accomplish the goals and stay true to the mission that you guys were on. That's truly profound and deep. Can you talk to me also about your diet? I read you used to be a vegan when you played in California. One, how did you manage to still have energy, you know, maintaining that diet? And did it affect your high level of performance?
That was 2012 when I decided I was going to go vegan. I read the book. I can't think of it now. Wow, you got to put me on the spot. But I read a book, and it changed how I thought about food in general, how I thought about food. I mean, where our food come from and how it affects our body and how food is the real medicine for, you know, our bodies. And, man, I read it, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I started thinking about things that I never thought about, read some more research. And, you know, I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. I mean, it can't hurt me. I'm still going to get all the protein I need because I'm going to get plant-based protein. So I tried. I started like January the 20th. And I started right after everybody finished their fasting for the beginning of the year. And I started January the 20th. And I did it all the way to Thanksgiving. And it was easy for me because I'm the type of guy, I could pretty much eat and drink anything. I get to spring training that year with the Angels, and one of our clubhouse guys was a vegan as well. So that kind of made it easy. I started cooking. I bought a book called The Vegan Slow Cooker. So I bought a crock pot and started, you know, cooking on my own. And our clubhouse guy, he used to cook. And I reached out to all the visiting teams and told them what I was doing and how I was eating. And they made sure that I had a vegan fare when I got there. So that made it very easy. I lost a lot of weight. I did lose some weight. I lost about 8-9 pounds, but you start looking at my blood numbers, I was just as healthy as you can get. And at the end of the day, people caught up with what you look on the outside, but your inside could be all messed up. And I knew when I was vegan, my insides were good. They were very good.
To my next question, because, you know, JT, our researcher, posed this question, and he went down to the facts. And I know our viewers and listeners are going to be tuned in specifically to this question. We talk about longevity. When you finish your career, you were the only active player to pitch in thousands of innings, and you were the oldest player still at the age of 42 to still be in the game. Do you think playing at a high level for so long was the vegan diet, or was it a combination of that and being consistent and the hard work, or like what was it? Because everybody's looking for the fountain youth, everybody's looking for longevity in their respective spaces. So they definitely want this seed in wisdom and information.
I was always a thin, wiry, athletic guy. Probably in 2007, when I was with the Colorado Rockies, is when it all changed for me. And just started doing more research on, all the food that I like to eat: hamburgers, hot dogs, Polish sausages, and just looking at the diet that, I had growing up and the diet that I continue to have as an African-American male, and thinking about and reading about African-American issues and seeing, my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncles, my aunties, and some of the issues that they were having. And I made a promise to myself right then that I was going to do all I could not to have diabetes, high blood pressure, try to stay away from the early signs of, hypertension and heart disease and things like that. And I know a lot of times people, it's genetic, it's in your family. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that some of the things that are in my family, as far as medically, I don't have to be subject to. My mom just passed away. She was a diabetic, and she had a complication having surgery to get a tube put in for dialysis. My grandfather passed away May 9th, and he was 94 years old, and he was pretty healthy 94-year-old, born and raised in Mississippi, ate a lot of sweet potatoes. He drank milk, which I thought it was the most awful thing, but he walked a lot. He tried to stay as active until he couldn't be active anymore. But I just said, I didn't want any of those. I don't want any of those issues. And, at the rate I'm going now, hopefully I don't have any of those issues, but I'm doing my damnedest, man, not to, because I've seen what diabetes and high blood pressure and having to go on dialysis and things like that do to African Americans. It's not African American men, African American women too. And if I can do something now to help me live a better life when I get older, I'm gonna do all I can.
And I'm so glad you touched on that, because my daughter, who's a juvenile diabetic, she has type 1 diabetes because her pancreas does not produce insulin. Right. And I know a lot of people may have, type 2, which is sometimes recycled behavior for some of the things that you put into your temple. So I'm so glad we're having this discussion on the importance of what you put in your body, especially with COVID and all these things where a lot of people are immunocompromised. From that standpoint, it's very important that you put the right things in your body in order to have a foreseeable future. You have to, as they say, eat to live, not live to eat. And I think that's very important.
That's powerful.
Yeah, man. But I understand that you are you're the godfather of Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, and whose father, Pat Mahomes, was your teammate with the Twins. And I know you're extremely proud of him for winning the Super Bowl and cashing in on that bag. So first, I want to ask you, did you expect that success for him to happen so soon? And why did it happen in your eyes?
Yeah, Karan, I've watched him his whole life. And if you can ask Jeremy, man, I was talking about Patrick back in 2016, like when he was at Texas Tech, because I think the big thing for Patrick is that he never had a quarterback coach or had a coach in general put him in a box. They didn't put him in a box. They didn't tell him you have to be this type of quarterback to be successful in high school. You don't have to be this type of quarterback to be successful in college. You don't have to be this type of quarterback to be successful in NFL. They let him be who he wanted to be. They let him use his basketball ability. He was one hell of a basketball player in high school. They let him use his baseball instincts. Incredible pitcher, shortstop in high school. They let him incorporate all those other sports to his football game. And I think that right there was huge for him. He didn't go to those quarterback camps and where you got to do it this way. This is the only way to do it, to get it done. No, his coaches at each level recognized that they had a guy who had as they would say in the movie, a unique set of skills, a unique set of skills that, you can't tame them. You can't corral a Mustang. You're not supposed to. And, when you think of Patrick, I'm not surprised because I watched him do it in high school. I watched him do it in college, and he's doing it on Sundays. The exact same thing. He's a better quarterback now with better technique, but he's doing the same things. He's making the same plays. And, him being the MVP, not surprised. Me and his dad will tell you in a heartbeat, you know what? We're just happy that the world gets to see what we've seen in him all the time, all along. When people didn't believe him, when they were recruiting him, when Kingsbury came to White House, Texas to recruit him, Kingsbury saw it. Nobody else saw it. And with Patrick being as loyal as he is, when Alabama and Florida and Notre Dame and all those big schools finally noticed it and started coming after him, he was like, no. I'm going to Texas Tech because I'm loyal. And with that being said, he's been put in a lot of good situations, like getting drafted by the Chiefs with Coach Reed. Coach Reed, they don't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Couple of bit. It doesn't get any better when you get drafted into a situation where they already have a damn good quarterback in Alex Smith. And Alex Smith didn't take the stance as, screw you, young guy, you're here to take my job. No, Alex took the stance as, I'm going to teach you everything I know. That doesn't happen that much. And for him to do that, that shows you what type of, individual that Alex Smith is. He didn't hold anything from Patrick. He didn't hold anything from him. So, I got to give Alex a lot of credit, knowing this guy come to take his job, and he gave him everything that he knew. He gave him everything. He gave him the whole bag.
Yeah, man. There you go.
He gave him the cheat code. That doesn't happen, man. So Patrick's been put in some real good positions, and a lot of that's because of the type of person he is. We talk about his football abilities, but his IQ is off the charts. Photographic memory, his love for his community, and to always make a place better than it was when he got there, and that's who he is.
And it's a perfect segue to my next question and my last question for you, LaTroy. When you think of LaTroy Hawkins and your legacy, your name, and what would you be remembered for most, what would that be? I see you touched on a lot of things, being a mentor, being a great confidant to your loved ones, the importance of your job, special assistants, and having that wealth of insight and information. But ultimately, what would you want to be remembered for or known for most?
That's a good question, man. You really don't have to think about that often, but you just never know what tomorrow may bring. But, just want to be remembered as a guy who tried to make every space that I was blessed to be in better than the way I found it.
That's deep.
Every space.
I like that, bro. That's powerful. Hey, I appreciate you joining the Tough Juice podcast and sharing this platform with me. I know that I'm better from this conversation, and I learned a little something about baseball as well. Appreciate you, brother.
Man, I appreciate it too. And Karate, I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm a huge college basketball fan. So watched you. Great career, man. I'm a huge college. I'm not so much on the NBA, the last 10 years, but I'm still a big college fan. I love college basketball. I'm Final Four. I'm going to KU to watch games. I'm going to UNT. I'm going to Rice. I'm going everywhere to watch basketball. I'm a huge college basketball fan.
Hey, I actually, my first job after I left the NBA, I was working with TuneIn with Jeremiah. but I also was working college basketball at the WCC conference. And bro, even though financially the big money was in the league, I did not want to be pulled away from college basketball. It was just like the energy was just, it was different, man. It was
different, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you get them when they're young and before, you know, we get them big paychecks. Raw part. I get it.
Real talk.
College basketball, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yep.
Be safe.
Appreciate you.